Did you see the documentary Drinkers Like Us last night? It was presented by West Brom's Adrian Chiles. He was encouraging people to track their alcohol intake after revealing he sometimes drank 100 units a week. That's the equivalent of 10 bottles of wine. Here's Adrian hearing about the impact of his drinking.
I mean, this shows us exactly that even though their blood tests were almost completely normal, the FibroScan was abnormal. And with a FibroScan score of 8.9, we would classify that as a mild or even moderate fibrosis of the liver. And on top of that, you've got significant liver fat, which we call hepatic steatosis, which is something that we also see with heavy alcohol consumption.
If I just carry on like I am? What?
Well, I mean, the short answer to that is you can't carry on like this. You're at risk of disease progression to cirrhosis, end-stage liver disease, and liver failure.
And death.
And death.
Well, yesterday morning, Adrian came in and spoke to BBC WM's Kath Stancheshan about the documentary.
Moments for me in this. One, when I count on the first day's filming, when I counted how much I had to drink in one day, and it was the day West Brom played Liverpool. Right, I had 4 pints at lunchtime, which is a lot, but not unheard of for me before the game. Nothing in the afternoon. Went to a party in the evening in London, and that was like 36 units. Blimey! And then that was a shocking moment. And the one you played, having the liver specialist look at my liver, that was a shocking moment. The third one has been sort of last week. You've seen the impact it's had and seeing it in print going, he drinks nearly 100 units, around 100 units. I thought, blimey, do I? It's like I was talking about somebody else. I thought, yeah, they did. I've said that, and I do. And that's what the programme's about. So it's the whole thing's been shocking. I mean, I think it'll change the way I think it'll change how much I drink. I think I will moderate it as best I can. And if I've got to stop, if I've got to stop, I'll stop. But tellingly, it's taken doing a national TV programme to bring that about.
Well, listening to that was Craig Beck. He's an alcohol addiction therapist and former problem drinker himself. Craig, good morning to you.
Good morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm fine. Tell me about your former issues with drinking, if you would, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems with this is that people have this stereotypical image of what an alcoholic is. It's someone sitting in a park swigging booze out of a brown paper bag. And because people don't think they fit that description, they don't think they have a problem. And that was very much me. I was entirely functional. I was the director of 2 companies, the patron of a children's charity, never missed a day of work. But every day when I got home from work, the first thing I did, even before I said hello to my wife or hugged my kids, the first thing I did was grab the corkscrew, open a bottle of wine. And that would lay out the course of my evening every night. I would drink wine in front of the TV until I fell asleep. And then I'd repeat the process over and over again. And before long, I was drinking 2 bottles of wine every night.
Then, presumably, at some point, you must have thought, hang on, this can't carry on. This is obviously problem drinking.
Yeah, well, actually, I was in denial for a very long time. Actually, I started to get some quite severe health problems. And I developed this pain in the right-hand side of my body, this kind of dull ache. And being a man, I avoided going to the doctor for as long as possible, and I put it off for about 3 months. I even replaced the mattress on my bed. That's how stupid I got about this. I was willing to consider anything than my drinking, because I was terrified that if I went to someone and said I was worried about my drinking, they'd make me stop. And that's what scared me the most. So I left it as long as I could, and I went to the doctor, still actually expecting them to say that it was nothing to worry about and it was a muscle strain. And that actually didn't happen. The doctor looked me square in the eyes, and I remember the words to this day. He said to me, "There is a chance there is something very seriously wrong with you." And that knocked me for 6. That absolutely floored me. But interestingly, it still wasn't enough to stop me drinking. I still was looking for ways just to cut back at that point.
And then when did you actually bite the bullet?
Well, I spent about 5 years trying to moderate my drinking with various ridiculous methods. And in the end, I worked out that everything I was doing, although all these attempts were different, they were all based on willpower. I was still trying to force myself to avoid something that I wanted more than anything else in the world. And when I realized that that's never going to work, and it's the same reason why diets don't work, it's because you're forcing yourself to avoid something that you believe is a benefit to your life. So I had to change the way I thought about alcohol. I had to stop seeing it as a treat, as a way of relaxing, as a way of, relieving social anxiety and having fun. I had to see it for what it is, and that is attractively packaged poison.
Adrian says he made the documentary after being interested in people's idea of what types of drinking counts as alcoholism. Here's actually what he told us yesterday, Craig.
There's this binary idea, I think. An alcoholic is somebody who wakes up on a park bench. If you're not that, then you're probably fine. Well, I just don't think it's a binary thing. I think we're all somewhere. We're all somewhere on a spectrum.
Yeah, as you said to us earlier, actually, Craig, similar thing. It's not an alcoholic is not necessarily someone who, as you say, wakes up, as Adrian said, they wakes up on a park bench. What should people do if they do want to quit or cut back? We need to look at ourselves in the mirror, really, don't we?
Well, you've got to have an honest conversation with yourself first, and there are going to be people who can moderate their drinking. There are going to be people who have just let it slip a little bit, and they're not perhaps addicted, but they're just having a unhealthy routine with their drinking. And they can do very simple things like making sure that they order a glass of water for every alcoholic drink they have, and just simple things like that. Making sure that they order small glasses rather than large glasses. And that might sound over simple, but there is you have to go and order another drink, which means queuing at the bar, and it does tend to slow down your drinking. But many people like me and like Adrian, who have routinely used alcohol to change their mood, to cope with life, and it's always been in their life on a daily basis, they may find, even though they tell their friends, I can stop anytime I like, the reality is they find it very, very difficult. And actually, you could do what I did and spend 5 years torturing yourself, trying to moderate your drinking. But it's just a miserable place to live, denying yourself the thing you want the most.
Craig,
the best thing to do is stop.
Altogether, so you don't drink at all now?
No.
Craig, do you think also the way we regard alcohol also ought to change? Because the number of times if you've gone into a pub or something like that and someone says what you have is, oh, I'll have an orange juice. They go, oh no, a proper drink. For instance, you must have heard that a few times. Oh, you may have said it yourself. Oh, have a proper drink.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of peer pressure, but also when you stop drinking and you still hang around with your drinking friends, actually you cause them some psychological pain, because intrinsically at the back of our heads, we all know that what we're doing is dangerous and wrong. And drinkers don't like to have that highlighted. Drinkers hang around in groups of other drinkers because they like the social proof that what they're doing is normal. So when someone steps out of that pack and says, I'm doing something different, it causes these people emotional pain. And they've got two options at this point. They can either raise their standards and stop drinking too, or which is much easier, is to try and pull your standards back down to their level so that the pain goes away. So there's some quite interesting psychology going on around this drug, a drug that we don't even like to call a drug.
Is the GP the best first port of call, do you think, if you feel you may have a problem?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the first time I went to my GP, and it took a lot of guts and a lot of courage to go and do that, and I was shaking as I went in, and I thought, I'm finally going to admit this. And I told my GP how worried it was, and he looked at me and said, don't worry about it, you drink less than me.
Right.
And that was, I was devastated, because I thought, even the GP can't help me. So some GPs are better than others, but certainly if you're worried, getting professional medical advice is definitely the first step.
Craig Beck, thank you very much indeed. Addiction therapist talking to us on the programme this morning. So if you think you've got a problem, I think it is that looking yourself in the mirror and going, you know what?